sometimes called the mainstream media or even the legacy media, which gets me a little nervous, has undergone some really wrenching changes in the last 5 years, 10 years. Many of them driven by the ascension of the internet and the changes that it's created in the business model. I think this is a good group, particularly because, you know, as people who live overseas or have lived overseas, the internet allows you to keep up with the New York Times or even your hometown newspaper from virtually anywhere in the world. And that is a tremendous advantage of the internet. It's a kind of democratizing, leveling feature of this new technology, and nobody would ever argue against that. Another big advantage, I think, is that we Americans are no longer being force-fed the news from 3 white guys, representing 3 different networks, which many of us remember, Walter and the other 2, presenting the news, it was only one perspective. And so the internet is wonderful because it has, again, that kind of democratizing effect. It offers up any number of diverse views, points of view, voices that are not otherwise heard. And so I champion that and I applaud that. But, there is also, I'm sorry to say, and I've been in the news business and a journalist for 30 years, and so I have seen this. There is also so much unmediated junk on the internet, rumor and gossip and trivia that I fear is driving out quality journalism. And the reason for this, and I have a long report here, but I think I'm just going to give a little summary and then we can get back into it. The reason is that that quality journalism, the kind of journalism that demands verification, not just assertion, that shines its light in every corner and doesn't have a preconceived agenda or notion of what the story is until it's found, that demands attribution, that kind of quality journalism that requires digging and long-form investigations, it costs money. It's expensive to sue the Pentagon. And that is what the New York Times did in 2008 when it discovered that our government was basically spying on its own people, wiretapping its own people. That costs money. The Boston Globe is an institution that's been around for 145 years. It's has built up some credibility and some authority over those years through painstaking journalism, which costs a lot of money. In 2003, we won the Pulitzer Prize for, it was the Public Service Award, which is sort of like Best Picture, that's the top award that the Pulitzers give for a year-long investigation that we had done into sexual abuse allegations in the Catholic Church here in Boston, the Archdiocese of Boston, very powerful institution. We dedicated, 5 reporters for a year working full-time on this story. We had legal bills, and it cost about $1 million to really get to the bottom of that story and to report it in a way that even the church, a very powerful institution, had to confront. And a blogger in his pajamas is not going to be able to do that kind of journalism. And we can applaud many of the developments in internet journalism, but I believe that traditional journalism, the type that really all of us here represent, and which costs money, needs to find a way to make this new platform of the internet pay. And that's something that maybe we can discuss a little bit further, because and not to get all high school civics-y about it, but I really think that, that these changes, that these threats to traditional journalism undermine our democracy and our abilities to be well-informed citizens and voters. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say I'm very impressed with an organization that contacts me 2 years ahead of this conference. Charlie's done a lot of work The Monitor has been around 102 years. It specializes in foreign and national news. We're one of the first, maybe the first national newspaper to go across the United States. But we also hope to have a lot of overseas readers, and we have over the years. Like other newspapers, we've gone through difficult times in the last 10 years with the challenge of the internet, which has forced us to drop the daily newspaper and go to a weekly, and put our primary focus on web journalism, which is quite an unusual phenomenon to get used to. I think we're all adjusting to that. It was started in 1908 by a woman who thought the American press at the time was pretty bad. It was the peak of yellow journalism, and she wanted to set a high standard for journalism, Mary Baker Eddy, and she launched it as a global newspaper, and we've kept that vision in mind. And so we are one of the few papers remaining that still has a lot of overseas bureaus. I was fortunate to serve in 2 Asian bureaus, Manila and Tokyo, and traveled all over Asia. I also spent 5 years in Washington, and I was thinking, I think Charlotte or Barbara mentioned to me, a lot of you have a hard time really understanding the United States, and I can say after working 5 years in Washington that you don't want to follow media that's based in Washington, because that's where trends end up. It's not where they start. I think it's programs like Robin Young's program, if you can listen to it on the web at WBUR, is much more what America is about. And a lot of the national media is based in Washington. I don't think they have a handle on what's going on in America. And when I was there, I made sure to get out and do stories outside of Washington as much as possible. But that's a bit of advice if you're overseas, to follow local media, radio or newspapers. Anyways, the Monitor has maintained its foreign bureaus and also national bureaus. And I think a pivotal moment in the transition for American media came a few weeks ago or months ago when the Washington Post closed its national bureaus, which I think was a very sad situation. And just sitting here today, looking at you, I think I just make a prediction here that if there was a panel like this in 10 years, a lot more of you would be a new style of journalist. That idea of professionals up here on a panel is kind of going away, that a lot of people on the internet are now their own individual publisher. Everybody has a platform. And what Renee is talking about is what are the standards for reporting, any kind of reporting on the web, and that's a big question today, and maybe we can address that later.
Hey, Kelly, you're the peanut butter sandwich here.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be amongst such distinguished colleagues. Hi, is this better?
Yes.
I'll jump into it. Tehran Bureau is a virtual bureau. It's based online. It is now technically based in Boston because I happen to be here, but it's about using the internet to disseminate information in a very inexpensive way around the world by using the best of traditional journalism, not by opening the floodgates to citizen journalism, which I don't believe. But anyways, I got the idea for this when I started doing my own research on Iran, and I found the story that I was uncovering through my own reporting so much more fascinating, so much more nuanced, and so against what was being published in the mainstream press that I decided to, I tried to get the mainstream media interested, but they weren't interested, and the nice thing, basically the American election was coming up and the Iranian one was right around the corner, and based on that I just decided that I'm going to quit my job and use the internet to have my own virtual bureau, and that's what I did. I moved in with my parents who live in Boston, and I couldn't get anyone to even donate $1, so I found a free blog and used that, not to blog, but to publish stories, and I didn't even know how to make links, but it just worked. I think within the first month of its existence, we were quoted by ABC News and the BBC World Service, and it continued to gain an audience following, long before the election. And I did a story for the Neiman Foundation, kind of explaining why this was needed to cover a country like Iran, because journalists did not have access to Iran, or they had very limited access, and when they were allowed to go there, they would only be allowed back